As you can see, this is the first time we've had the walking camera guy in the studio in coming up on a year and a half.
Yeah, we had leased that.
It's great to have you back.
Right.
Just saying. Back to normal, kinda.
Kind of.
Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you. It's always an honor to be with you guys, and always an honor to fill in for Ainsley.
Right. Yeah, it's a Wednesday. It's not Saturday and Sunday yet,
No.
but you'll be doing that. And meanwhile, John Rich, and not only is it great to have him here, I believe the name of his band is the goal for everyone, to be big and to be rich.
Yeah,
so I
that's
think
the
that,
American dream.
I thought so.
That's your dream.
Until I saw that UN speech yesterday.
That's right. We'll get to that.
Right.
Well, that would be
get to
big
that.
and boring.
Yeah, that would be too.
That's so true.
But I was editorializing. All right, the news starts now.
That's right. And President Biden vows to get the escalating crisis at the southern border under control. When pressed on the issue, here's what he had to say.
Mr. President, what's your reaction to the images coming from the southern border?
Get it under control.
Get it under control, or you have it under control?
We will get it under control.
A report this morning that somebody was describing the conditions on the ground there as third world nation, but I was reading in one of the local papers down in Texas, they referred to it as a fourth world country from some of the volunteers from the local churches who are seeing the conditions there on the ground.
Good morning, family. You're exactly right. And as you guys remember Monday, we kind of told you that this was going to kind of spin out of control if the Biden administration didn't get a hold to it. I was comparing notes with my colleague, Bill Malugin, who is the best reporter on the border there is, has more sources than anyone. We were going back and forth. It seems like the Biden administration doesn't know exactly how to handle this right now. There was already an incident at a DHS bus yesterday where you had migrants that found out they were going to be deported and they started attacking the agents. Then you have Port-au-Prince in Haiti where the migrants were deported. These were single men and women, mostly men that did not have children with them, and they decided to attack ICE agents there. Then you got the Homeland Security press secretary that released this statement saying that they support people's right to peacefully protest and not supporting the ICE agents. One of the contentions is a lot of reporting from the national media saying that these Haitian migrants aren't being treated fairly. That is not true. We talked to the sheriff right here in town, Joe Frank. This is what he had to say. Watch.
The individuals that are down here on the bridge, they're receiving water, they're receiving medical aid, they're receiving food every day. The other day, the food ran out for the immigrants. Border Patrol agents ran across the line and brought their food over to give to them. So they got to eat before the agents on the ground had eaten. They ran out of food. The vendors bring basically two different trays of food. And when they saw that they were running out of food on the immigrant side, they rushed over and grabbed the food that was on their side to give the individuals underneath the bridge. So that just tells you the character of the people that are working down there.
Yeah, so just so we're clear, the border agents who's working hour after hour, sometimes 16-hour shifts, that are not seeing their family, that are not getting the proper food, took their own personal food and brought it to the Haitian migrants. When they decide to report this nonsense, it's starting to cause problems under that bridge. We've been hearing from our sources that part of what the border agents are trying to do is when there are people under that bridge that are trying to ride, they're trying to extract those people. But when the national press puts out misinformation like this, these people still have phones. They're still communicating with folks that are out of custody or being processed, and it starts to cause a riot under that bridge and put their safety at risk. So, guys, a lot of misinformation going out there.
And you have a situation, too, can you imagine going to somebody's house and complaining that they're not giving you free food fast enough? Really? Fantastic. So Bill Malugin also reports there are 332 husband and wife combos, and wife is pregnant in those combinations. So I guess we're raising those kids, too. And that's our fault. Almost 7,000 family units, over 1,500 single males, 493 single females. Right. So this is unbelievable that they're coming to our border and complaining about about the conditions. And they're not even the refugees from Haiti. They're the ones that have been living in Brazil and Central America, and they decided because Joe Biden's America, everyone's allowed in, now's the time to come.
Yeah, it's not surprising.
Brian, you're exactly right.
Go ahead.
Brian, you're
Lawrence.
exactly right. Most of these folks are coming from Brazil and Chile, and these are folks that have not been in Haiti. It's been misreported by the national media, and again, it's causing more problems. The Biden administration says that they have this under control.
Yeah,
I continue to report, the people that are in front of me is the Texas State Troopers. It is not the Border Patrol. The Border Patrol are handling processing. They want to be able to do their job. They're not allowed to do their job by the Biden administration.
Well, you're doing your job. Lawrence, thank you very much.
Thanks so much. It's not surprising for me to hear that the Border Patrol was giving their food. The Border Patrol is who saves children, you know, drowning in rivers, dying in the desert, being left by cartels. They are the greatest humanitarian organization, if you ask me, in the Western Hemisphere right now. They're constantly in the midst of this. Look at this squalor. I lived in Peru as a kid. That looks like a Peruvian shanty town, if ever I saw one. Senator Ted Cruz from Texas.
By the way, you see what's happening there? It's the Texas National Guard sealing off the border because the federal government is choosing not to have the resources to go there.
Absolutely. We have the resources to do it, Brian. We're just not doing it.
Absolutely.
Senator Ted Cruz from Texas, this is what he told Larry Kudlow about the border failures.
This is a man-made crisis. You know, you showed that footage of Biden at the UN saying we're going to get the border under control. Let me give you a place to start, Mr. President. Come to the Rio Grande Valley. See the disaster that you have created. We've had 1.2 million illegal immigrants since Joe Biden was sworn in as president, and it's the direct result of political decisions that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have made. In particular, 3 decisions. Number 1, on day 1, they immediately halted construction of the border wall. Number 2, they reinstated the failed policy of catch and release. It doesn't work. Number 3, most critically, they withdrew from the incredibly significant.
And so yesterday, when the Secretary of Homeland Security was asked by the senators up on Capitol Hill, you know, give us a ballpark estimate of how many people have been deported, how many we're holding, how many we're releasing. I can't even give you a ballpark. Why? Because he knows exactly the number, but the number is embarrassing to the Biden administration. When you look right at the number and it's like, whoa, all those people. The Associated Press has got a story out this morning that says that those Haitian migrants are being released into Del Rio, Texas in very large numbers. They're just taking them over to the bus depot and they are getting on buses and they are given a 60-day notice to appear. Go to an ICE office in 60 days. We're going to trust you. Until then,
but that is directly contrary to what the administration is saying. The administration is saying is they're expulsing them. That is not true. They are not doing that.
Well, they're
releasing them. And even the AP, this isn't like disgruntled Border Patrol agents saying that, oh, yeah, they're releasing them. Oh, no, this is the AP who saw them released at a bus station. We know that's happening. For the Biden administration, this is an optics problem. This is about how do we get them out of detention centers? How do we get them out of this Brazilian favela that we've created on our border right there? This is what we do. We just remove them into the interior of the country, release them. We don't close the border. We don't build the wall. We don't put back the Remain in Mexico policy. Everything you're seeing here that the Biden administration has done, just as Ted Cruz has said, is meant to encourage illegal immigration.
Thank goodness for the drone team, and thank goodness for the Texas National Guard, because they're beginning to seal things off. I think the rest of the world is getting pretty horrified by it. When you have to go and make huts out of reeds in order to protect yourself from 110-degree temperatures in the sun at our southern border, and now you wonder why there's some unrest underneath an arbitrary bridge on the Texas-Mexico area. It's unbelievable. And the estimated number is about 600,000 are within the interior of our country. We're all tired of waiting. This is thousands of migrants are pouring over the border as we speak. Plus, DHS confirms Haitian migrants on deportation flights injured 3 ICE officers and perhaps a pilot, while migrants in Texas overtook a deportation bus on Tuesday and then fled before, they say, being apprehended. But I don't know what to believe.
Yeah, well, apparently it's out of control. If Joe Biden says we're going to get control of it,
Yeah,
that means we're out of control. Fox and Friends Enterprise reporter Lawrence Jones is live in Del Rio, Texas, once again this morning. Lawrence, I heard news alert on this Wednesday. That body discovered at a Wyoming campsite has been positively identified as Gabby Petito, and her death has been ruled a homicide.
But her boyfriend and person of interest, Brian Laundrie, is still missing.
That has not eluded Carly Shimkus, who is live in Venice still, as the police investigate a new lead into his current location. Carly, we saw some compelling photos.
Yeah, that's right, Brian, Rachel, Steve, you said it. The FBI confirmed that the body found in Grand Teton National Park on Sunday is that of Gabby Petito. The manner of death has been ruled a homicide. The specific cause of death remains pending a final autopsy result. Now, Brian Laundrie is still the only person of interest, and yesterday the search resumed for him right here at the Carlton Reserve. 60 officers from 8 different agencies used ATVs, drones, and canines to tackle the difficult conditions. Meanwhile, a neighbor says Brian acted normally when he came home without Gabby Petito on September 1st. She told Fox News he mowed the lawn. He and his mother went for a bicycle ride around the block. Everything was just normal life once he came back. And more details released on that August 12th domestic dispute in Moab, Utah between the two. A witness who called 911 told police in a statement something definitely seemed off. At one point, they were sort of fighting over a phone. I think the male took the female's phone. It appeared that he didn't want her in the white van. We're also learning about a camper who claims to have led the FBI to Petito's body.
So I saw Brian Laundrie parking his van August 26th at Spread Creek. So I'd already reported to the FBI what I had seen, and I wasn't 100% sure, but now that there's dash cam footage of the van where I saw it, I'm 100% certain it was just him. There was no Gabby.
Yeah, Jessica Schultz says after telling the FBI her story, an agent thanked her for tipping them off to the right place. And Steve Ainsley, Brian, the police do say that the search for Brian Laundrie will resume right here at the Carlton Reserve later this morning.
What do they say, Carly, about the stills? Do they think it's the same guy?
Yeah, okay, so that was a big deal yesterday because there was somebody who posted a picture on Facebook all the way 515 miles away from where we are right here in Northport. It's over in the Florida Panhandle up northwest Florida. It's a picture, it's a grainy picture of sort of a trail cam. Posted it on Facebook, said, I don't know if this is the right guy, but it does match Brian Laundrie's description. In the county police office there, they searched all day, all night for any sort of evidence that may indicate that somebody was camping there. They say they found nobody or no one that would appear to be Brian Laundrie or somebody on the run, but they say that they are going to remain on the lookout on that front.
Yeah, and Carly, I read this morning that Gabby's family's attorney thanked the media for allowing them to grieve in private and said that a statement would be forthcoming once she is returned home. When will they return her body home?
That remains unclear right now. They obviously had to wait for the autopsy to be done. There's also a final autopsy report that needs to be released, but I'm sure that her family is waiting to get her home so that everybody, all the loved ones, can pay their final respects, and hopefully they can feel a little bit of closure as they mourn together over this tragic loss.
All right, Carly Shimkus live down in Venice, Florida this morning. Carly, thank you very much.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you, Carly.
You bet.
All right, so the President of the United States yesterday did a 40-minute speech in front of the United Nations General Assembly that continues here in New York City today, Gridlock Alert Day. He talked about, he made it very clear, his first time as president of the United States. He said the United States will rebuild alliances, although he didn't mention how the whole world was shut out from the Afghanistan withdrawal or how we stabbed France in the back. He also talked about how the United States would re-engage the WHO, the World Health Organization, but he did not mention the WHO's cooperation with China in covering up COVID. But he did try to make it seem like the United States is back. Well,
Yeah.
we were in kind of a bad spot for a while, but now I'm going to build back better as Joe Biden.
Yeah, I think only the Taliban has built back better since Joe Biden has been elected. But another thing that he's being criticized for is not using the word China in his speech. He also didn't mention North Korea, Venezuela, Iran, but China is an interesting one. And Senator Tom Cotton from Arkansas said that he wouldn't use China's name, that he was like a scared child from a Harry Potter novel who wouldn't say Voldemort's name.
Don't say that.
Because he's afraid of what might happen. And I think that's very interesting. I do think that Joe Biden is afraid to say the word China. And we now know that other sources, the mainstream media, is finally acknowledging what we all saw was true from the New York Post reporting before the election, that Hunter Biden had a laptop, that those emails are real, that Joe Biden is the big guy who's getting kickbacks. And I believe that what we're seeing, even in this speech and in so many other parts of our foreign policy, is a president who is compromised, a president who, if you ask me, is a national security threat, because China knows exactly what Joe Biden has done. And Joe Biden knows that China knows. And I think it is impacting our national security, our economic security. I think there are deals that could be made for the betterment of the American worker that aren't being made because Joe Biden is compromised, and also because so many of Joe Biden's donors, the donor class around the Democrat Party, is completely in bed with China.
Meanwhile, here's a little of the speech you probably missed.
I stand here today for the first time in 20 years with the United States not at war. We've turned the page. All the unmatched strength, energy, and commitment, will, and resources of our nation are now fully in on what's ahead of us, not what was behind.
A couple of things. He chose to put Afghanistan war behind in a way in which we've left people behind. And our NATO allies have people left behind, assets, allies, and citizens. We talked to Scott Mann yesterday. They're looking at thousands of people they're trying to get out, now working with the Defense Department. He is the man that left 10% of Americans behind. First time in history. Number two, when he said relentless war, instead of relentless war, we're going to go relentless diplomacy. What an insult that is to the previous three regimes. Nobody wanted war. What they did is they had diplomacy, and we had to resort to war. And diplomacy is useless without force. And please tell me, in what speech do you give to the world, who has lost millions of people and close to 700,000 Americans specifically, where you don't bring up pandemic? Never before again can we have a country hoist a virus on the world and not allow inspectors to come to do their work to find out how it started. Never before should we allow a country to rip up a international treaty and steamroll Hong Kong like they are while threatening Taiwan as we speak. Never before should we again allow millions of Muslims to be rounded up and put in concentration camps and use their organs to give to other people. They're essentially human beings who are harvesting organs to give to other Chinese people. Never before again should we allow Iran to hold the world hostage with a nuclear agreement that we refuse to enforce. And I am embarrassed by the fact that I did not inform our allies that we were leaving Afghanistan, who were great enough to stand by us for 20 years. I am so embarrassed by that speech and the weakness that he showed and his willingness to talk about climate change and take our dollars and donate it to the world in an effort to get them to do things they should be doing if they cared about this planet. Anyway, we have to pay them to do it while Russia and China pretend that we're in a global climate crisis.
I got a feeling you didn't like it. Neither did Tom Cotton. And you had mentioned something he had said. We found the soundbite. Here he is with Laura last night.
Joe Biden walked into the United Nations and slapped a giant "kick me" sign back. And in particular, as it relates to China, he bent over backwards to conciliate and appease the Chinese Communist Party. He said, "We don't seek a new Cold War." Well, China has been waging a Cold War against America and our workers and our military for decades. So the question is not whether we seek one. The question is whether or not we will fight back in it. Yet Joe Biden wouldn't even say the word China. He's apparently too scared to even mention China's name in a speech addressed to the world's leaders.
And then when he returned to the Oval Office last night, he talked with Boris Johnson, and as is historic and is customary, is the American president will take 2 questions from the American press, and the UK president will Prime Minister will take 2 questions. Boris took 2 questions, and then when it was time for the American press to ask questions, the White House staff actually shouted over the people who were in our press corps.
Scuttled them out
so
of there.
they could not ask a question and could not get an answer.
But you know why? He's got nothing good to say, and he's in a series
100%.
of bad news. And, Steve, there was one point where he said, you can ask a question, but only to him. So to him, he's actually telling the press, ask him a question. I don't want to do it. They laughed, but he meant it.
Yeah. Well, I think he had a long day at the UN. I mean, it interrupted his nap time, and I think he needed to get
he has had a very bad week, Rachel and Brian, because yesterday a Des Moines Register poll came out that showed that the people of Iowa, looking at Joe Biden, currently give him, I believe, a 31% approval rating. He has gone down 12 points in 2 months. So he's had a very bad summer. Luckily for him, it's the first day of fall.
Right. Yeah, 27 minutes now after the hour. Jillian, you've had a very good summer as we transition to fall.
Oh, did I?
Yes.
What did I do that was the highlight?
Nothing that you did was bad.
Okay.
Right?
Thank you.
And none of your foreign policy moves have blown up in your face.
I'll take that. Yes, that's in the win column for me. Let's go ahead and start off with the Fox News alert now, because a Washington, D.C. special police officer dies after being fatally shot. Metropolitan Police say a female cop was found unconscious and not breathing. Authorities have not identified the on-duty officer. Police are looking for a white Camry with dark tinted windows connected to the shooting. A $25,000 reward is being offered for information that leads to an arrest in the case. A Republican candidate for Nevada lieutenant governor is dragged out of a meeting and shoved through a metal detector. Take a look at this. Oh my goodness. Mac Miller was violently shoved by security as he was protesting the county's decision to declare COVID misinformation a public health crisis. Miller appeared injured on the grounds as others argued with security to call an ambulance. Protesters, including Miller, argue the county's decision violates their First Amendment rights. Let's go to a live look at Capitol Hill as the House passes legislation preventing a government shutdown. The bill, which suspends the debt limit, faces a major hurdle in the Senate, where nearly every Republican has come out against it. The GOP, particularly displeased the spending bill omits $1 billion for Israel's Iron Dome defense. Progressive members of the squad pushing Democrats to eliminate that aid for Israel. Actor Willie Garson, best known for his role in Sex and the City, dies after a battle with cancer.
Oh, Stan, you're wearing white.
Like a virgin.
Touched for the very first time.
Garson playing Stanford Blatch, a friend and confidant of Carrie Bradshaw in the iconic series. He was reportedly on set filming scenes for the reboot just weeks ago. His on-screen husband, played by the actor Mario Cantone, writing in part, quote, "I couldn't have had a more brilliant TV partner. I'm devastated and just overwhelmed with sadness." Garson was 57 years old. So young, so young.
They were filming the movie just a block away.
Yeah.
Yep. That is too sad, too bad. God rest his soul.
All right, thanks, Jillian. Meanwhile, still ahead, campus culture war is still going on. New research finds higher education is pushing students further and further to the left. A former professor who resigned in protest of his school's woke
into American classrooms. A new study reveals higher education not only liberalizes students, but hardens their beliefs. The research published by the American Psychological Review says, quote, "We find that higher education often shifts moral concerns in a liberal direction but that for most students, these changes are accompanied by a rise in moral certainty rather than relativism. Hilary Act is a former professor at Portland State University who resigned 2 weeks ago, claiming the school sacrificed ideas for ideology. Peter Boghossian, author of How to Have Impossible Conversations, joins us right now from Portland. Peter, good morning to you.
Good morning.
So, regarding this research, what do you think is the headline from it?
I think the takeaway is that when people go to the universities, it's not the same university it was even 5 or 10 years ago. These are indoctrination camps, and they're indoctrination camps into a very specific set of beliefs. And the longer you're there, the more certain you become in your moral attitudes.
Now, what do you mean by that, more certain? Absolutist, right?
That's the term the study uses. The more absolutist one becomes. And so the danger is that people think that the colleges are providing an education, but they're really indoctrination centers. They're indoctrination mills. And it's something that we need to be incredibly mindful of, because professors have jobs for life. The whole system is geared toward values that most people recognize as alien to the fundamental rudiments of American civilization.
Right. Well, Peter, you had it up to here, and you said, you know, I can't go along with this yet. You didn't become a professor to be working at an indoctrination camp. But how many of the people who work at the universities are of like mind and think, you know, this is the way we should be going? And how many people are like you, like, I can't believe we're teaching this crap?
Yeah, it's worse than crap. That was probably the nicest thing you can say about it. It's very difficult to know the answer to that question, because universities have managed to create cultures of fear under threat of constant investigation, bias response teams, diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. So it's difficult to know how many people are true believers and how many people have just been cowed into silence.
Yeah. You know, for a parent of a child who's in college right now, they've got to understand the dynamic of what the kid is going through. And if the kid is not on the same page as the professor and maybe rocks the boat a little bit and brings in another point of view, suddenly that kid's not going to get the straight A's.
Yeah, that's true in many fields, but it's not true in some others. And it's really true with certain propositions like trans issues regarding race, gender, and sexuality. It's much less so in the STEM fields right now. But I think that the important thing for parents to know is that the universities aren't truth-seeking enterprises. They're places that look at as indoctrination factories, indoctrination mills. And so when the kids come in there, they have a very activist mindset for them. So truth is no longer the North Star of the institution. It's something else. It's having them believe a set of moral propositions. And they've been, as the study shows, they've been incredibly successful with that.
Right. Check out his book. It's called How to Have Impossible Conversations. We all have them occasionally, and that's a good book to use as a North Star on that. Peter, thank you very much for joining us today from Portland.
Thank you.
You bet. All right, coming up.
Continue to follow public health data. Really, what data? Support local business and ask everyone to do their part in Boston's recovery, reopening and renewal from the ongoing pandemic. Jess Fracalossi owns Handlebar Cycling Studios in Boston. Jess, what has the reaction been from your members on this mandate, that the mask mandate that's not lifted?
I think a little bit of resignation, despair, a lot of sympathy for us and our business and for the team. We've been through so much, and a lot of people are apologetic but not going to come in and ride when they have to wear a mask. A lot of people, you know, are sticking with it and trying, but they're not coming as frequently. It's sad. It's hard.
How has it affected your bottom line?
It's preventing us from getting above water. We've been working hard to get above water since the pandemic began. Due to just sensitivity of the virus. We started really making strides in July, and then with news of the Delta variant and then the mask mandate, our numbers are just slashed.
Can you get quality time with the lawmakers who are enforcing a mandate that's illogical?